The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Hello, welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Wednesday in the Riv. I'm waiting for those satellites to crash on our intro one of these days. I keep looking at them. They haven't crashed yet. So.
Hey, we've been using that intro for 9 years.
I know. Yeah.
It's holding up pretty good.
It is. It is. Well, again, we start the battle of the classes in Fall River. We don't hear much talk about affordable housing or anything like that.
Last night we did.
Yeah.
The city council meeting.
Yeah.
What a joke, though.
Yeah.
They were focusing on Mike Dion and the CDA block grant. And questions came up with, can't CDA build some affordable housing? Something along that line. And Mike Dion made it very clear. He says, look, you buy a house, a triple-decker, for $250,000, $350,000, $450,000, and then to rehab it, it's $150,000 per floor. He says it's not cheap. That's why the rents aren't low. It's expensive. And that's why people are buying houses at $500,000, $600,000 now.
Yeah.
So
well, look at the rents are expensive in Fall River again because they've artificially inflated the rents with market rate housing, and we all know. Look at they got a million excuses, but they have no excuse for not doing something for the poor people. We have the deceiver in chief that never talks about poor people. All he talks about is his banker friends and his lawyer friends and his developer friends. He doesn't care. Doesn't care at all. There's a class war here. It's not a political war. It's not Democrat versus Republican. It's about rich versus poor. The average Fall River citizen against the elitists, the elitists. The problem is, where's the talk about getting rid of the gas tax? Well, we know that it's not going to hurt the bond rating because it just came out.
S&P
so,
Global.
Again, our state reps are doing nothing. Rhode Island, on the other hand, is talking about not only eliminating the gas tax, but eliminating
the excise tax
on automobiles.
Yep.
And they're doing everything they can. There's actually a Somerset selectman, I think he just got elected because he said he's going to try to get relief for people who are on fixed incomes, who are older and have been living in Somerset for at least 5 years, and have low incomes. Where is it? They're going to give licenses to illegals. They gave themselves a massive pay raise. What are they doing to the people who are making 22 grand? Now we've got an inflation rate that's now 8.5%.
Right.
And then the way they're figuring it, it's actually lower. It's probably around 15 or 16% if you use the old calculation, because they've changed the rules on how you calculate it to not make it look as bad. But you're looking at $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 out of your pocket just to deal with inflation. So let's look at somebody. Let's have an example. The average median pension for city employees is $22,000. Take $7 grand off it. That's gross, by the way. That's not after the tax. That's their gross pension. They're down to 15 grand, okay? Right off the bat. That's a little over $1,000 a month.
Right.
Now you're going to tell them that they have to pay, a mortgage or taxes, and they're going to pay $20,000 a year for rent or mortgages. So they've only got $15,000 left. So they're already $5,000 in a hole. Where's the relief for these people? Nowhere. Because you know something? It seems that everywhere on the planet, except Fall River, people realize the impact on the working poor and people on fixed incomes, except Fall River, because the deceiver-in-chief doesn't care. His friends don't have it. He's also the divider-in-chief, because he's dividing this city based along money, your income. If you're poor, go jump in a Taunton River. Sell your house and move. Where are you going to get a cheaper house? Nowhere. Move to Russia. And now, I finally segued into what I have to tell you the story, and I know I told you the story already, to show you the Nancy Pelosi's of the world eating the $15 ice cream pints with a $30,000 freezer and living in a gated community. Well, I saw mine. It reaffirmed my belief that these people don't give two craps about anybody that has to scratch for a living, even though they comprise the majority of people, whose fault it is that these people are in office because they don't come out to vote. And hopefully we can get them after they start getting thrown out into the street. I'm going to tell you a true story. The other night I was up here at Bristol Community College. For those of you who are familiar with it, I was in the far north parking lot up near the tennis courts and the soccer field, and I pulled in to the southernmost parking space right along the curb near the soccer field. There was a soccer game going on, and there were people on the tennis courts to walk my dog. And I was finishing up a telephone conversation, and if you can go and check this, the last parking spot is right near the trash barrel, and there's the walkway to the pond, the track around the pond, which I walk my dog sometime, and sometimes I walk her through the woods. And I'm sitting there finishing my phone call, and I'm all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see this car pull up. Not perpendicular the way the lines are, but parallel to the curb, right across the two handicap spots. Because, you know, who cares about the $300 fine? Who cares about anything? And I look at the car that is totally oblivious to anything except their own comfort, and it's an $80,000 Tesla. What else would it be but an $80,000 Tesla? Parked blocking two handicap spots so the wokey could get out of his $80,000 Tesla and not take more than 2 steps to throw away his bento box. Elitists. Total disregard for anybody else except themselves. I wanted to get out and punch him in the mouth and throw him over the hood so his girlfriend could look at him.
Kind of like
they don't care. They just don't care. Handicap spots, who cares? I got a Tesla. You go buy an electric car. Remember what was said by one of our billionaires, Bloomberg. You make less than $300,000, that's how out of touch he is. He thinks you're poor. Mm-hmm. But he said anybody that makes less than $300K, you shouldn't have a car. Ride the bus, don't eat meat, eat lentils, and fundamentally don't have a dog. He said if your dog gets sick, don't spend your money on chemo, let the dog die. You think they care about us? They don't care about you and I. And the only way we can make them care is by putting people in to office who care about us, people like us. You have to go to vote. We can't have a deceiver-in-chief, a divider-in-chief running this city, but we will as long as we have 14% turnouts in elections. So I'm not blaming them because they don't care. He's having such a good time. There's rumors abound that he's looking at a 3rd term now. What a great gig he's got. He's been in for 2 terms. He hasn't taken any major issue on. He's hid from everything, and he's getting a nice fat paycheck, and he's making all his friends rich and giving them jobs. What a deal. It don't get any better than this.
And the citizens are just letting it happen.
And I can't afford a Tesla. Am I jealous? No, I don't like them electric cars. They sound like sewing machines. I'm a muscle car guy. I like Mopar. Give me a Dodge Charger or a Challenger.
There you go. There you
That's
go.
it. Give me some horsepower and big noise.
There you go. There you go. That's for sure. Back to the gas tax.
The gas. Yeah, please tell us about
The
that.
report came out this morning, and it was actually revealed in Commonwealth Magazine's daily news brief that S&P Global, these are the people who know about bond ratings. Somebody who knows.
You mean an actual reliable source?
An actual reliable source.
Ah, good.
Has turned around and has said that by suspending the gas tax, it will not affect the state's bond rating. So what's the excuse that Mike Rodrigues and the infamous three are going to use why they can't suspend the gas tax now? Because that's the one they've been using all along.
Exactly. It was going to hurt our bond rating. And
Right.
what did we say on this show when that first came out? If this state is in such terrible financial condition that the gas tax would adversely affect its bond rating, this state's in deep trouble.
Yeah, it is.
And the reality is that we had, what, a $1 billion surplus
Yes,
a year
we
ago?
did. Yes,
so
we did.
these people just don't want to give you the money back. They want to keep it for themselves. And by the way, they just voted themselves a nice big pay raise, big fat pay raise. The hell, damn the torpedoes. Who cares about the gas tax? We just gave ourselves a giant pay raise.
That came from the gas tax.
That came from the gas tax. That's right. We can't get rid of any taxes in Massachusetts.
No.
We can't get rid of anything.
Nope.
Taxes. Massachusetts is a place where taxes come to live forever.
Well, and remember, several years back, the voters voted to bring the income tax back to 5%.
Yep.
We still haven't seen that.
I know.
We still haven't seen that. Because God forbid the voters
They
say
also
anything.
they also voted to reduce the sales tax.
That's right, to 5%.
Yeah. And everything we vote on, in spite of the fact that the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts' Constitution, clearly states that we are the government in part of the first Section 4, and in part of the first Section 5, it says that all magistrates and agents of the government, be they judicial, legislative, or executive, are at all times answerable to the people, and they are our substitutes and agents. They are answerable to us, but apparently they're not. We don't have a democratic republic in the state of Massachusetts. We have a oligarchy. And
What are we, Russia?
a plutocracy, actually, because it's the rich people that run it. But the reality is we don't have it because we voted to reduce the sales tax. They didn't do it. We voted to the income tax, right? They ignored it. We voted for capital punishment. They ignored it. We voted for everything we vote for. They ignore. We wanted to make judges be elected. They came up with something for that. They protected themselves. What we have up there is we have a elitist, depending on how you want to pronounce it. If you're really an elitist, you pronounce it an elitist, because now you're on the A list. You're rich and privileged. And you, too, can park and block 2 handicap spots so you can get to the barrel quicker.
Hey, maybe they stopped the election of judges because then the governor's council would be gone because it had nothing to do.
That's
so
right.
That would have eliminated the governor's council, and there's 9 jobs right there that.
Eliminating CJ.
I know.
CJ, you've lost your mind.
I know, I
The
have.
government eliminating jobs,
Well-
cutting, being lean and mean. Are you kidding? You've got to be crazy.
God forbid. God forbid. So it's been very interesting. So last night we had a city council meeting, as I opened
Yes.
up with earlier. It opened up with the Community Development Block Grant 3-year plan. Mike does a good job with that every year. This year I did not speak on it because there was really nothing that I saw that was contrary to what they've done in the past. It was kind of and every year it seems to be kind of just brush it along and get it passed. And that's sad because Mike puts a lot of work into that. And the citizens don't take part in saying what should happen with that money, because more could happen with that money than what we see, besides paying Kenny Fiola, which, by the way, Mike Dion, I was disappointed with. Turned around and said, Ken Fiola's doing a great job as the economic development director.
Of course he is, because he controls everything in the city. If he doesn't say that, Mike Dion's gone.
Probably,
Kenny
you're right.
Fiola's not going anywhere. We found that out. They got rid of him for a short time, but he came back like poison ivy.
With Paul Coogan.
Yeah, and he dragged everybody
And
in.
remember, when he was removed from the job by Jason Correa, Ken Fiola was going bankrupt on his building downtown.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, Paul Coogan got elected, and all of a sudden, he's flush with cash.
Everybody that knows Paul Coogan is flush.
Flush with cash.
Everybody is flush. The only people that aren't flush are the people that are now going to try to afford $1,700 rents. We did hear that story of a woman whose rent went from $850 to $1,700 with the proviso that that did not include a charge for the sewer and water.
The rainwater tax, yep.
The rainwater tax. So that would be $20,400 for rent for a year without the stormwater tax. How is somebody on an income of 24, 23, 22, 18, 17,000? There are people getting $1,000 a month. How are they going to afford these rents in this city? This city is always has been economically challenged. We've always had a lower socioeconomic community. Blue collar workers, lower wages, but they don't care. They use words like gentrify, which will never happen. But they don't care. They drive their Teslas around, and they tell us, John Kerry's flying around in his jet, polluting the entire world. But that's okay for him because he's doing important work. And that's the problem. They are truly elitist, and they truly do not care about us. Bloomberg articulated what was articulated 200 years ago by the rich in Labor's Untold Story, that they don't care about us. We are dirt under their feet. That's what we are. Because the reality is, ride a bus, take a bus, shut up about gas, take a bus, eat lentils, don't worry about inflation, and let your dog die. So that's what Mike Bloomberg thinks we should do. And he has his own private police force, and he's anti-police. But when asked about his police force, he said, well, I'm rich and I'm important. I need a police force. So he has his own private police force. That's why the elitists are allowing people to be murdered every day in New York, Chicago, everywhere in the country. That's why Fall River's #1 in crime in Massachusetts, again. But do they care? They don't walk our streets. They go to Wokieville for entertainment.
Well, what came up last night also in the city council meeting was the fact that the Fall River Housing Authority has a 98% occupancy.
Yeah.
And that's why the waiting lists are 4, 5, and 6 years long.
Unless you know somebody.
And, yeah, really, you got to know somebody. And to make it worse, the residents don't feel safe because the Housing Authority failed to designate the properties as senior disabled only, and now everybody can live in them, so they're living with drug dealers and prostitutes and everything else in these buildings, and they're afraid to go get their mail downstairs unless they've got somebody with them. So
That's a
this
travesty.
is what's happened in Fall River.
Yeah, it's a travesty.
Even our housing authority doesn't have control. They pay the police department money to provide police coverage, okay? And I don't see it. Now, here's the really interesting thing. You look at Chicago or New York and their housing police. They are in those buildings. They have a force. It's an actual force that's in those buildings. When something goes wrong, they're there.
Oh, and they as bad as, like, look, Chicago's a war zone, and we know it, but Chicago does. Their transit police, their other police do a job. I was at a convention in Chicago one time, and I saw the Chicago police lock up a guy for lighting a cigarette on a bus. They told the bus driver that was it. They told him stop the bus. They handcuffed him, took him off the bus, and called for a unit to take him in.
Yeah.
But you know, I want to know what happened to the Coalition for Social Justice. Where is Debbie Faustino when you need her? Where are these people that used to cry about knocking down the projects and everything else and talking about affordable housing? Nobody talks about affordable housing anymore. Is this, yeah, I know this society, they might be afraid they'd be canceled because you actually have the audacity to care about poor people, but where are they? I haven't heard a word from them in years.
No, I haven't heard.
I think the last time I saw the Coalition for Social Justice, when they were going to knock down the project on Rodman Street, that was the last time I saw any of them.
I've seen some of their work during the most recent local election. They come out to get the vote out, supposedly, and they provide their list of supporters and their list of people in the city and who votes and who doesn't vote, and they do all of that legwork for the candidates that they like. They're selected, you know.
So they're a
oligarchs.
political organization, not really a grassroots organization that really cares about the people. That's the problem.
Right.
So you just identified the problem. They're not really about affordable housing. Social justice to them is political justice. And obviously these people have not been very effective because look at Fall River. They're going to squeeze virtually they're going to squeeze about 75, 80% of the people right out into the street with this Durfee override, with the Diamond override, with all the rest of this stuff, with the structural deficits built into the budget. I mean, we're looking at, as I said, I know that's factual because we just had Perak do the numbers. The average Fall River retiree averages $22,000 a year. That's the median retirement. Of course, some of the newer retirees have higher pensions, but the median, how is somebody making $22,000 a year gross with their pension and is 80 or 90 years old, whose house has been paid for 20 or 30 years? Just think about that. Somebody who brought their children up, somebody who's had the house paid for 20 or 30 years is now looking at losing that house because these nincompoops can't control their spending. They're going to give somebody a $19,000 pay raise in a city where the average per capita income is $25,000. That is 74%. That's fundamentally not what that person, the average median income, that's 9 months of their annual income. And they gave them that for a pay raise. And they gave somebody else a $16,000, which is only 64%. But you're going to tell me that there's any kind of sympathy for the average person at Fall River? You know, if you're going to urinate on my head, please do not try to convince me it's raining.
Well, I'll tell you now, we see this all the time. We've spoken about it numerous times. And one of the things that I got into an argument with somebody about, and you can confirm this.
You getting into an argument? What a surprise.
I never get into arguments. Let's be real. I never get into arguments. But they turned around and said that these city employees are cleaning house on their pensions. And I turned around and tried to explain to them that that's not the case. That it's, as you said, $22,000 is the average. I said, granted, there are some people who are getting $80,000, $90,000, but that's not everyone. That's the exception, not the rule. Well, with their pensions, they get Social Security. I said, no, they don't. I said, because their pension system in Massachusetts is what they pay into, they don't pay into Social Security. And even if they had paid into Social Security, they get what's called an offset, which means they lose that money from Social Security and they don't get as much. And he said, that's wrong, that's wrong. I said, look, I'm telling you now, that's the way it is. My uncle had it, and he had an offset, and he could barely buy a case of beer with what he got from Social Security. So he couldn't even pay for the Medicare. So I don't want to hear it. Yeah. And the guy was just adamant that, pension, people who work for the city are getting, cleaning houses on pensions.
Prospectively, he may be right, they're giving out such gigantic pay raises to some of these people. But then again, we have that class divide.
Right.
The people with the big jobs, the people that are politically appointed, that are getting the giant six-figure salaries, they are going to have the good pensions. But let me tell that individual, there are people working in the city hall as clerks right now making $30,000, $35,000 a year. That's not a lot of money in today's society. The reality is there's still a lot of people not making a lot of money. I will say, and I can tell you that ultimately that will tank the retirement system in the future, because it will be such a strain when virtually everybody that gets retired is going to be making a gigantic pension, because you don't make it after you retire, because the way it's structured with the COLA, they can only get 360 right now. You can only get fundamentally a set amount. So if you live too long, that's what's happened to retirees. I knew people who retired 30 years ago, and they got a really good pension. They were like chiefs on a fire department, or, police officers, firefighters. They made decent money. They had a decent pension. But then they made the fatal mistake of living too long. And what happens is when you're only getting less than $1 a day every year, if you get a COLA, after you live 30 years, I'm going to tell you right now, in the 1970s, a firefighter was making $5,000 a year. So if you retired in the 70s, that was all right. Think about somebody who retired in the 70s and lived 30 years. I mean, you're going to get 80% of $5,000. Think about what 80% of $5,000 is 30 years later, when a firefighter is now making $40,000 a year or $50,000 a year. This is the problem with the retirement. Everybody thinks that the retirement is so great. It's great for the people like Billy Bolger, who got a job for $350,000 at UMass. It's great for the Eddie Lamberts, who got $300,000 jobs in the education department now. It's not great for the poor schmuck who's working for $30,000 as a secretary in the city hall, or who's working for $30,000 in the school department. Let me tell you, because I see the people who make the $30,000. I don't see the ones who are there because they're living in Palm Springs.
Yeah, it's tough. I want to get on to something real quick in the last minute that we have. As we mentioned it on the Monday show, Kelly Susie Young, the election commissioner, passed away. They now have to put somebody else in that position. I spoke with a previous election commissioner, and I spoke with several other people who are involved in the election commission, and they all believe that they need to appoint somebody who has at least 10 years experience, not 1 year experience in the office, because they're politically connected. So, Mr. Mayor, if you're listening to this, and this comes from people who know, you need somebody who can do the job, who has 10 plus years experience doing that job. It's not something you can learn everything on the job. You learn a lot on the job, but especially with this being a state election this year, all the ducks have to be in a row. And if you put somebody in that position that doesn't know what they're doing, we're going to have a problem with our elections. And then when we have a local election, it'll be even worse. So, I know.
Silly you.
Silly
You're
me.
talking to the Pope of patronage.
I know.
And you want him to do the right thing.
Well, this former election commissioner was very upset with the potential person that may be getting the position, because this person has been going around saying that they have gotten the position. So it's kind of tough. Well, we're out of time. I want to thank you all for watching. We will see you on Friday. And remember, stay safe, stay angry, and hold your politicians accountable. See you on Friday. Thanks for watching.